When a closed system stops exchanging energy with its environment, it decays. We see this in stagnant water, in dying stars, and in isolated societies. The physical universe operates on a strict rule of continuous exchange. Every particle must interact, transfer heat, and stay in motion to survive. Thousands of years ago, Vedic scholars defined this required continuous action as Yagya. Often translated simply as a religious ritual, the original texts describe Yagya as the highest form of participative action required to keep the machinery of existence running. Without this intentional output of energy, the physical environment chokes on its own static exhaust. The soil degrades, the air stills, and the isolated individual experiences a literal biological decay. Reversing that decay requires finding the original instructions for exactly how to turn the engine back on. Those instructions are preserved in the Yajurveda. Studied and rigorously maintained across centuries in places like Ajmer, India, this text operates as a detailed, technical manual for universal mechanics. The Yajurveda maps out a universe that functions as a precise system of weights, measures, and reciprocal forces. It identifies yajna as the underlying law and sustenance of this entire system. To heal a failing environment, a person cannot simply sit still. They have to intentionally enact this science and force a physical reaction. The process starts at the absolute smallest scale, with what the text calls Agni. Agni represents vital heat, both the literal thermal energy of nature and the focused intention of the human mind. When you introduce focused heat into a cold environment, the local temperature rises. The air immediately around the heat source expands and begins to move. This vector graphic visualizes how a central point of energy destabilizes stagnant surrounding particles, triggering a radial chain reaction of kinetic movement. Scaling outwards, these active flowing pathways push away polluted air, creating a vacuum that draws in fresh oxygen. Your personal exertion of energy radiates outward. You cannot light a fire without altering the atmospheric pressure of the room you are standing in. That displaced energy expands horizontally, but it also travels vertically. Heat rises, expanding from the Earth's surface directly into the vastness of the upper atmosphere. The texts point to space and wind as the primary carriers. They take the refined, heated particles from the surface and distribute them across the global weather system. This vertical flowchart illustrates the thermodynamic transfer. Terrestrial heat continuously lifts moisture from the surface into colder cloud layers. Watch as the vapor condenses. Exceeding the atmospheric threshold, the system triggers downward vectors of precipitation. The heavy, vapor-locked clouds break. The atmosphere releases the stored energy as generative rain, crashing back down to the soil. The Yajurveda details Yajna as an objective ecological cycle. The earth feeds the sky with heat and vapor, precisely so the sky can feed the earth with water and life. When that cycle completes, the biological impact on the ground is immediate. The soil absorbs the water, plant life metabolizes the nutrients, and the local ecosystem surges with fresh caloric energy. The initial stagnation is completely flushed out. The dead, isolated environment is replaced by a high-functioning, participative biological network. Maintaining this balance depends on human intention. The texts describe a synchronization where consciousness and action mirror the physical pulse of the planet. True vitality requires permanent synchronization. We have to consistently align our physical actions and our mental focus with nature's continuous loop of exertion and return, and that loop doesn't stop at the edge of our atmosphere. This fractal diagram extends terrestrial logic to the stars. The texts identify 12 Adityas, centers of gravity, managing the solar sphere. Just as Earth feeds sky, these cosmic centers exert a constant pull, keeping planetary bodies in precise reciprocal orbits. The text arrives at a precise conclusion, from a single human breath to the evaporation of the oceans to the burning of distant stars. There is only one unified, inseparable Yajna. We are not passive observers sitting quietly in an empty void. We are active, necessary components, the ignition sparks required to sustain the pulse of the cosmos.
Sutreya is dedicated to decoding the profound truths of Hindu mythology for the modern world. Subscribe to dive deeper into the Vedic revelations that shape our reality.